My ex came back into my life claiming she was carrying my baby, until a single date exposed what she had been hiding. The first time she called me after the breakup, I almost didn't answer. We hadn't spoken in nearly 4 months, and honestly, I had spent most of that time trying to make peace with the fact that whatever we had was over for good. It wasn't one of those clean breakups where both people move on quietly. It was messy, emotional, the kind where too many things get said at the end, and somehow none of them actually give you closure. So when her name lit up on my screen that night, I just stared at it. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me already knew ignoring it wouldn't make the feeling go away, so I answered. At first, she didn't even say hello. She just breathed for a second, then said very quietly, "I need to tell you something." The tone of her voice made my stomach tighten immediately. Not because it sounded dramatic, because it sounded serious, real. I asked what was wrong. There was a pause. Then she said the one sentence I never expected to hear from her after all that time. "I'm pregnant." Everything in me went still. For a second, I honestly thought maybe I had heard her wrong. Not because the words were unclear, because my brain refused to process them. She repeated it, slower this time, and then added the part that changed everything. "It's yours." I didn't say anything right away. What exactly do you say to that? There are some moments in life where your mind doesn't react in a straight line. It doesn't go from shock to understanding. It just spins. Questions, memories, timelines, regret, fear, all at once. I asked how far along she was. She said a little over 7 weeks, and instantly I started doing the math in my head. We had seen each other once after the breakup, one stupid night. One emotional mistake we never talked about afterward. At the time, it had felt like closure wrapped in confusion. Now suddenly it had consequences, real ones. I asked if she was sure. She got quiet after that. Too quiet. Then she said, "I wouldn't call you if I wasn't." That line hit harder than I expected. Because despite everything that had happened between us, there was still a part of me that wanted to believe she wouldn't lie about something like this. Not a child. So I agreed to meet her the next day. We sat across from each other at a coffee shop that used to be our place. That alone felt strange, like the universe had a sick sense of humor. She looked nervous, tired, different somehow. Not in a dramatic way, just enough to make me feel like the distance between us had become real. She slid a folded piece of paper across the table, a printout from a clinic. Pregnancy confirmation, estimated gestational age. Aduedat. I stared at it longer than I needed to, trying to force my mind to catch up with what my eyes were seeing. She told me she had only found out a few days earlier, that she had been scared, that she didn't know how to tell me, that she had spent hours thinking about whether she should even call. And while she was talking, I wanted to believe her. I really did. Because if it was true, then everything changed. Not just emotionally, practically, permanently. This wasn't about whether we got back together. It wasn't even about us anymore. It was about what came next, and whether I was ready to become a father with someone I no longer trusted enough to build a future with. That thought alone was enough to keep me awake that entire night. I kept replaying the conversation, the breakup, that one night after, the timing, the fear in her face, the paperwork, all of it. And if I'm being honest, I probably would have kept believing it too. If not for one stupid detail, one date. The next evening I pulled the clinic paper back out and looked at it again. Not because I thought I'd find something, just because my brain wouldn't stop circling around it. That's when I noticed the date printed at the top of the form. The date of the visit. And something about it felt wrong instantly. Not vague wrong, not suspicious in some abstract way. Mathematically wrong. Because according to that date and the gestational estimate listed underneath it, she would have already been pregnant before the night we slept together. I stared at the page for a full minute, then checked again. And again, same numbers, same timeline, same impossible conclusion. If that paperwork was real, then the baby wasn't mine. And if the baby wasn't mine, then she hadn't come back to tell me the truth. She had come back because she needed me to believe a lie. That was the moment everything changed. Because suddenly I wasn't looking at fear, or vulnerability, or a woman trying to do the right thing. I was looking at someone who had done the math before calling me and hoped I wouldn't.